Hey everyone, thank you so much for stopping back by. I hope you're enjoying these Tea Time with Tia videos because I enjoy making them. They won't be every single week, of course, but as a topic strikes me, I feel inspired to share it. And of course, I drink a lot of tea. So I like to also share whatever tea I'm drinking. So today's tea is by Stash. I got this from my old office, actually. It's my current office, but when we were actually going in person, and which for me was before 2020 when I stopped. I stopped going into the office in 2019, but sometime before then. So this tea has been sitting a while, but it was in one of those sealed bags. It is by the company Stash, and it is their pumpkin spice decaffeinated tea. It's cool now because it took me a long time to finish getting set up, but it's wonderful tea. Very balanced and warming, but it has a natural sweetness to it. So when you add a little sweetener, it just enhances what's already there. And this cup, you can see I've got my lipstick on here, but this cup is by Mikasa, and it is their Love Story collection, which is my favorite. So I'm gonna sip a little more of the tea and I'm gonna see if you can see it. Yeah, I've got a little bit left. I've been sipping on it here and there as I've been setting up. So yeah, that's a good one. I like it. I'm glad that I picked it up. I think it was left. It was in my office's like tea box where people will just have like extra tea and they would leave it there. And I think it was skipped over because it is decaf. And in an office, most people run off of caffeine. Most of them are not there for a decaf experience. So now that that's out of the way, I'll tell you some other little details that you might be curious about, and then I'll go into the subject of the video. The lipstick. A while ago, I did a video about a Revlon try-on. This is Revlon Red, the red that I really loved. That's what I'm wearing with a very little bit of dark brown lip liner, like a really cheap beauty supply store liner. Which I had almost all wiped off, and then I just put the lipstick on top. And this is my favorite stone of them all, Labradorite. I rarely wear it on camera, but I wear it frequently off camera. It is one of my favorite stones. I love that it's neutral. What is this on my chain? It's my hair. Oh, I see it now. Okay. Anyway, this is Labradorite. It is a beautiful stone, dark gray, that has this, and I don't know if you can see it on camera. Yes, you can. You can see a little bit of it. You see that light, and I'm looking at the screen. That light part that catches it, that looks almost, oh, there it is. You can see it on this side. That's labradorescence, and I love that effect. So yes, I wear this a lot off camera, but I thought I'd share it on camera too. So I'm going to take one more sip of tea and then I'll get into the topic. So good. Today's topic is about grace, extending grace, receiving gracefully, and embodying grace. I don't think this is something you can do when you're young and hot-headed like I used to be. I used to be young and very hot. It's kind of funny in hindsight that I was such a hothead in my interpersonal relationships, not to just general people, but people who knew me. I was a hothead a bit, especially in romantic relationships. And what happened was I got older. I didn't want to have high blood pressure. I didn't want to have the issues that come with being a hothead. And so it made me reconsider. That's the beginning of reconsideration. But then as time went on, I became a lot more empathetic to people. I started to, this helps, going to therapy helps so that you can understand the human condition better. What I found was that a lot of people have gone through a lot of things, and we're told that very often, but I don't know that we always understand the extent of that. So with time, I got better at extending genuine grace to people because I became more gracious with myself. I started forgiving myself for things. And once you start forgiving yourself, you find it very easy to forgive others. So getting back to the topic of grace, It's generally considered more of a religious concept, but I consider it not necessarily religious, but spiritual. Um, of course, spirituality and religion are not the same. You can absolutely meet all of the requirements to be compliant with a religion and be completely devoid of spirit. Likewise, you can be extremely spiritual and not adhere to a religion. So the two are not connected unless you want them to be in your own personal life. That being said, grace as a spiritual concept always makes me think of kindness that isn't deserved. And when we say it isn't deserved, it's unearned kindness. I think of how the different decisions um, I made in my own life with what I've chosen to do and how I've chosen to interact. If it was someone objectively looking for from the outside in, they'd say, "Oh, you should never be forgiven for that." But we're talking about the things I did in my life that affected me directly. Um, I was acting like the outsider, not forgiving myself for certain things. And I had to work on that forgiveness for myself and extending some grace to myself and acknowledging, you know what? You got it wrong. You may have meant well or not, depending on the situation, but you got it wrong. You didn't keep doing it. Good for you. You didn't keep doing that wrong thing, but you've done a whole lot right after that. You can let that go. Make peace as you can with whoever else may have been affected. But don't continue to punish yourself for not getting it right that time. So I had to start doing that, and it made it so much easier to be empathetic and kind and gracious with other people, where not necessarily that you just forgive without any kind of requirements. Boundaries are important, of course, but you start giving other people the room to be human, and you don't hold them to the standards of perfection that you may have once done. It's important to recognize people are people, and a person that does not meet your perfect standards is not necessarily wicked. They just may not be for you. That was something that I had to take time and really let that sit in my spirit, as the phrase goes. That that doesn't mean they're evil. Just because their way is not my way, that doesn't make them evil. It doesn't make them malicious. It just makes them who they are. And if it's that contradictory to who I am, I can let them go graciously, without bitterness, without anger, without malice. I can let that person go so that they can find the people aligned with who they are. And I free myself in the process to find the people who are aligned with who I am. It's not an easy thing to do, because normally by the time you realize that you're misaligned with the person, you care. And grace requires a very selfless level of love. You have to be able to say, I love you enough for you to be happy apart from me. And yes, that's usually in a romantic context, but it doesn't have to be. This can be your platonic friends. This can be acquaintances or alliances that you've built over the years with certain people. And you realize these things are not serving you. They're not going in the direction you need them to go. And you have to let them go without bitterness. If a person wrongs you in some way, it's very hard to be gracious about that. It's extremely hard. You can be stoic. You can be neutral at some point, but gracious takes work. And it's not natural for a lot of us. I think it helps with age, because you just realize people are disappointing as a rule. Even the best people will disappoint. So you kind of make peace with the disappointment that's inevitable in human interactions, but it's challenging. But it's a skill that we can practice. One of the things I had to do back in November was I had a hard conversation with a friend, a dear, dear friend, where we realized we were no longer close and we were no longer friends. And she did not desire to reestablish those bonds. And I respected that in a way that I don't think I would have in previous years. I just respected that we'd outgrown the needs that we filled for one another. And she stated it in a kind way, but it was not something that had crossed my mind. But I agree that the roles that we once filled, we're no longer occupying, so we have to let each other go. But we can do so graciously. We don't have to part in bitterness and anger and fire and brimstone. It doesn't have to be like that. It can simply be, I love you enough to let you find the friends that serve you best for this next phase of your journey. And if we cross paths again and it seems well suited, that's great. I doubt it, because that's not usually how my life trajectory has gone. But I don't deny things can happen. If at some point we cross paths again, awesome. And if we don't, there's no hard feelings. There's love there, always. So learning how to be gracious starts with, of course, forgiving yourself, being kind to yourself, taking good care of yourself. And it allows you to see people outside of their flaws or outside of their shortcomings, which is not easy, but it's possible. And that was today's message. Extend yourself some grace, extend it to people that you feel need it and that you feel capable of extending it to at this point. And practice, practice, practice makes perfect. I hope that was helpful to someone. It certainly helped me to share it with me, sharing it here. And I will finish sipping my tea and I'll be back on Wednesday. I was getting ready to say Tuesday. I'll be back on Wednesday and I will talk to you all soon. Take care.